I first want to commend you and your organization, Truckers Against Trafficking, for shining a light on this issue, doing what you can to help staunch it. I represented one of the counties in our nation that has been worst hit by the opioid epidemic in recent years, Scott County, Indiana. There were massive HIV outbreaks, and Scott County sits along a major interstate corridor, and we feared that the transit hubs located along that corridor and other corridors could become incubators for addiction and disease and further social pathologies. And so I just wanted to publicly commend you for your work. Ms. Sorensen, you've spoken to, in your testimony and elsewhere, the importance of a data-driven approach. In fact, that's what Polaris offers those who are trying to make a difference here. Identifying trends, working to stem the flow of these appalling crimes through identification of those trends. There's clearly an importance of collecting the relevant data, of standardizing that data, of disseminating it to decision makers and analysts and scholars who are doing their best to try and staunch this human trafficking industry. Given that Polaris is on the forefront of combating this crime and this challenge, how can Congress best assist groups like Polaris in this data-driven approach through improved data collection or perhaps other measures?
Thank you for your question.
Yeah.
I think this is a real area of conversation. So the President's Interagency Task Force has a subgroup that specifically focuses on data collection and standardization. And it's been a struggle. I think they wouldn't mind my reflecting it that way. But across federal law enforcement agencies in the first instance is difficult. Incorporating state law enforcement agencies after that, more difficult. But also even across HHS and DOJ for the Office of Victims of Crime has been challenging. So we hear federal agencies pushing the mantra of standardization, but I think the more we can bring perhaps academics into that debate to help with that conversation so that it happens more quickly, so that it happens as efficiently as possible, it would always be welcome. We are trying to do work slightly outside of the realm of just with federal agencies as well. So we've actually recently embarked on a partnership with the International Organization of Migration to create something called the Counter Trafficking Data Collective, which would gather all of the data from anonymized cases from hotlines around the world to make available to scholars and academics and others who can access it privately so that we can learn more but without endangering any sort of victim through sharing too much information. I think.
Have we gotten to the point where we're able to analyze sort of leading indicators so that we can get out in front of this problem in particular geographies or among particular identified sets of our population?
I think if we collate that information, we can. There's another idea I might put forward to you, and it's something that Senator Blumenthal introduced last Congress. It was called the Visa Transparency Anti-Trafficking Act. And what it does is it actually would require an annual publication of particularly the temporary work visas that are granted every year. And we know from operating the hotline, we analyzed 2015 data, and in 1 year, we saw that 40% of our labor trafficking references were from people on temporary work visas. So we see this massive correlation. Now, if we had the information about where those populations were coming from, what industries they were being authorized to work in, what regions of the country were they going to, we might be able to better direct Department of Labor or other kinds of investigators to actually target their oversight in particular ways. We could also drive prevention education efforts to populations that we know are consistently migrating for certain kinds of at-risk work. So I think there are a few ideas. One is obviously that data standardization, but it's also we have a lot of this data. We're just not necessarily using it to the best of our ability yet.
Well, this is this area of data science and data analytics and so forth is something that we're increasingly becoming sophisticated at. So I would love to work with you and your organization on any improvements at the federal level we can make, statutory, regulatory, whatever. I just want to sort of conclude here by shining a light on the state of Indiana. As some of you are aware, our state has done some incredible path-breaking work with respect to addressing this issue, really regarded, I think, by many states as a national model. The Indiana Protection for Abused and Trafficked Human Task Force, or IPATH, has been an ongoing initiative to study the problem, to come up with a way to address it across jurisdictions of government, with various other stakeholders around the state of Indiana. And it was informed in no small part by Polaris and the work you do. So thank you for that. Chairman?